been down this coast so many times, just as many as you need to know. That when you feel that wind against your skin, a little part of you has found a home. I said, chasing after anything. Spent so long wanting something else. Nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. You know where to find me, I'm coming home. Still I wait, haunted by those dreams, haven't slept in weeks the way I used to. What's a king without his crown? Baby, you gotta wonder why I ain't sleeping when the sun goes down. The game but losing time. A story was written with words in the sand. Front row tickets for this traveling band. This is where a little faith comes in.
Yeah, like I said, we welcome everybody. We want to thank faculty and staff for taking time out of their day to come to us. Today we've got a special treat. We have Senator Ronald Rabin here with us. He currently represents Lee, Barnett, and parts of Chatham County, or excuse me, Johnston County. My apologies, sir. And we've actually had him come here today, and being Constitution Day, he has a few words on the Constitution, and since I'm not the one that you came here to see, we're going to go ahead and turn over the floor. Senator?
Thank you, and thanks everybody for having me. It's fellow veterans, because I am a veteran and very proud to be a veteran. I'm here to share some thoughts with you this morning on some very complex issues. I was asked to talk about two basic things, one being the Constitution because it's Constitution Day, and the other being how the Senate is doing with regard to veterans benefits and veterans programs here in the state of North Carolina. For those of you that don't know me, I have to sort of tell you up front that I don't think you can really clearly see problems or solve problems in a politically correct world. I think you have to just go right after what you think is right or wrong. And so I will do a lot of that. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you what I think is. I'm here, like I said, as a retired soldier and less as a senator. I will get into the senatorial part in the second part of the speech, but the first part deals mostly with how I, as a retired soldier, feel about the Constitution. I know you can see I got a thick stack of paper here. It's kind of, don't worry about it. Reason it's a thick stack of paper is I can only see from this distance 16-point font, so there's a lot of paper for just a few words, and I'll go through them real fast. I do promise to keep the end of the remarks as close to the beginning as possible, and that should make everybody happy, especially my wife Mona. She insists that I be kind of quick at all of these things, and one of my measures of maturity of people is when they understand who's really in charge, and I know Mona's in charge. Most people know me as Mona's husband rather than Senator Rabin anyhow. It just works out that way. I'll start with the Constitution, and right up front tell you I am by no means a constitutional scholar. I'm not even a lawyer. On the other hand, I'm not sure that some of them don't have even less of an understanding of the Constitution than I do. And I think, I might even have to say one of the best examples that I've seen lately is the current Attorney General. I don't think really understands it very well. Some say our Constitution is out of date, and my answer to that is those people are nuts, okay? The framers were men of great vision. They were scholars. They understood the philosophies of the time. And with their great vision, they created what is probably the greatest document, second only to the Bible and a little bit ahead of the Magna Carta, in terms of documents that have influenced the life of man since we've been on the planet. I think you have to look at the document, though, when you start saying it's out of date and needs to be changed, in the context of the time when it was written, not in the context of what's going on right now so much. The reason that people fled what's called the old country, or Europe primarily, in the 17th and 18th century was because they got tired of the despotism of the kings and the monarchs that were reigning at the time. They wanted freedom, they wanted personal freedom, they wanted their unalienable rights, words that I sort of borrowed from a document we might be familiar with. They also wanted freedom of their religion. And so when they wrote this, it was also the time of the Reformation. You have to sort of keep that in mind also. That's where the political suppression was going on, and so they began to move this way with those philosophies and those ideas in mind. The pure authoritarianism of that kind of a state and that kind of a life was in fact depriving folks of those unalienable rights that we have. So our Constitution, and I'll say it again, it's our Constitution, it's not somebody else's, it's ours, not only defends those freedoms and those unalienable rights, but it also protects them from the government's ability to deny them. It's not there to protect the government from us, it's the other way around. Undeniably so when you read the document. The Constitution establishes a regime in which the people are sovereign, not the king or the government. It creates a government charged to protect our freedom and our sovereignty as individual people. The Bill of Rights, Amendments 1 through 10, are the primary protectors of those rights, and we tend a lot of times to dwell for a whole bunch of reasons on the First and Second Amendment. I think it's kind of a good idea to go down to number 10 and read it once in a while, which deals with the rights of the state, where the federal government does not have rights, and the ultimate sovereignty of the people, again, coming back into play. Because of their foresight, you can change and amend the Constitution, but the same framers knew that somebody would come along and want to usurp these freedoms that they were so concerned about having. They made it so that the Constitution can be amended, but the amendment to the Constitution has a very high bar. And that's there for the same protective reason, to protect us from special interest groups or folks who want to change the Constitution out of some progressive thought process that they have or something else. 2/3 of both houses of Congress have to approve any kind of an amendment before it goes out for a vote. And then the vote has to be 3/4 of the states. When you put that in the context of that time and now, that bar is high enough to continue to protect our freedoms. It also, by the way, reinforces, because of the 3/4 of the states have to go along with it, the idea that in fact we the people are in charge of this country. It's our fault when we don't stand up and grab a hold of that idea that we are in charge. Our problem's not the Constitution, it's those who abuse it by word and by deed and constantly harp on it being outdated. I'll guarantee you that you've all heard the idea that, for example, the Electoral College was not good, and that maybe we should jump in and just use the popular vote as the deciding vote in national elections. If you did that, only the large population centers folks would be involved in the election. There's nobody there left to protect the smaller states and the smaller voices unless we stay with the Electoral College, in my opinion. Again, I probably differ with a lot of constitutional scholars on that, but those guys who wrote the Constitution were pretty smart on things like this, I believe. You know, all veterans, all of us in the room, did take a oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. For lifers like me, the careerists, that ends up being a lifetime deal, folks. And so you got to ask yourself, you know, what can I do right now? And what I would suggest is that all of you who are veterans remember what that oath was. Support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Historically, soldiers tend to be apolitical, and I think that's probably a good idea when we're on active duty. But once we're retired, I believe now, the way the world is and the way things are going, we have to become more politically active. And that's probably the major reason why I'm standing in front of you today as an elected official. I could have continued to veg out where I live and play golf every day, but I got to the point where what I saw going on around me just wasn't really, I thought, and I still believe, not a good idea. My wife got tired of hearing me yell at the TV set and said, well, why don't you get up and do something? And the knock came on the door, why don't you run for office? And so here I am. But I do believe we have to get active and be involved and not just sit back and let someone else make the decisions. I would encourage any of you who are veterans, when you finish school and you get established, go out and run for office, get politically active in your communities. It's the right thing to do. Don't keep laying back on this stuff. Unless we have any questions on how I feel about the Constitution, I'll sort of drift into the Senate and the military legislation, military-related legislation and stuff like that. In fact, anytime you got a question, shoot your hand up. It won't throw me off because I'm not really paying much attention to what I'm looking at. That's one of the, I have a legislative assistant named Hannah, and she gets nervous every time I stand up, and she's not there to make sure I stay right here on these pages. But I just got to say what I'm thinking. I'd like to stand here as a politician and say, folks, I know you've heard this before. We in the Senate have done a gazillion great things to help the veterans in the state of North Carolina and in the United States and all over and I'm not going to do that because as I go through this, you'll see that I don't believe that we have yet done enough, okay? We've only scratched the surface, as a matter of fact. There's 17 bills. If you go Google the North Carolina General Assembly website, they'll give you the alphabet. You hit a V for veteran, and it goes down to the bills related to veterans that have been looked at in this last session. And I found out that there are 17 of them. And of the 17, only 4 of them really were passed, okay, have become law. And another 2 were just resolutions saying what a good job the veterans did and thanking us for our service and all of that, which is a good thing, but it's still not a helpful thing. One of them allows for the Department of Motor Vehicles to make it easier to get a license for heavy equipment operators who are properly licensed who come out of the service. I think that's a good thing. I personally don't think it goes far enough in what can be done. Another one directs that the State Board of Education establish rules for awarding credits for service training so that if you apply for a government job, you can get benefits met in requirements like that. The third, this is the only one of them, by the way, I'll admit that I had a direct influence on. I did sponsor the one on the driver's license, but the one that I pushed finally got into a subset of one of the bills where if you have certain kinds of service or certain kinds of decorations, you get your license plates for free. I thought that was only fair, figuring that for those, the decorations that were approved, they've already been paid for. All of that stuff's already been paid for, and it wasn't a significant amount of money anyhow. The fourth law, for some strange reason, I read it this morning while I was Googling this stuff, and lo and behold, the fourth one that comes under the veterans thing didn't even have the word military in it. It really had to do with museums and things. In art, I'm not against museums and art and stuff like that, but I don't know how it got to be a military bill. Like I said going in, I just don't think that this goes quite far enough. And the solution, I think, is compounded by a lack of focused effort. We're sitting here with at least 49 different organizations, either federal or state or local level in this state, not even counting what the Veterans Administration has, of people doing stuff for veterans, which is a good thing. The problem is, it's kind of like when you're on a military operation, you want the thing coordinated so you don't get hit by your own incoming or your own outgoing. You know? They're just not focused and coordinated, and I think that somehow I'm going to try. They told me make no promises, so I will make you a promise. I will try to make this thing a little bit better than it is right now. I've been working on it. The question is, how can we get the synergistic effect out of organizing these into one focused effort to try to make it work? I've listened to the economic and workforce development potential, and I've heard speeches. The governor makes great speeches on this. I heard one just the other day. They invited me to go to the Military Advisory Commission board as an observer. I don't know why they'd want me there as an observer when nobody at the table that I can think of really had any more military experience than I did, if any, but he said the same thing. Workforce enrichment, how glad they are to have us here and all of that. In the end, what the focus ends up being on is depending on how you count, you can get up to 1.5 million either retirees or active duty or reservists or family in the state. And that's a lot of economic input. But it's not the best that can be done if you look at it from the standpoint of we're trying to get the economy jump-started and back to what it was. We have gotten the taxes lowered so that companies want to come here. But one of the other enticements is the workforce enrichment that can happen if we would learn to take more advantage of the veterans and the people who are just getting out, the short-timers, coming out who are trained and can go into the jobs and then you say to industry, not only are the taxes lower, but the workforce that's here is a very good workforce and suitable for what you have to do and entice more business to come here. That sort of sums up the remarks on veterans. I want you to know, everybody in the room, that for sure I try to keep the most open office in Raleigh. Alan has my card. I will leave some out here for you to pick up. Just call or come by anytime you want to. Now, this time of year, the office isn't always open. We tend to use virtual office. My LA is in there a couple times a week. But we're trying to do things like this and just talk to people and try to get I can't do my job representing you, all of you who are from the Lee or Harnett County or Johnson County, if I don't listen. That's one of the reasons I like to do this. Come out and listen to what you've got to say so that I can apply it to my decisions. I have had two fairly significant meetings that should help. One with the Secretary of Commerce, who I think is a very, very competent person on trying to get, in addition to the workforce enrichment idea, build up our defense contracting business here in the state. We have the fourth largest footprint of military in the United States here in this state. And oh, by the way, we're number 24 in terms of defense systems contracts, and I think that can get better. And we've got together a person who has been in the military to consult with her and enrich her staff to try to go in that direction and bring that business in. I've also had meetings. I got to just talking one day about this issue I mentioned earlier about the transfer of military credentials, training, and education into the civilian side and come through the community colleges and work from there. And I happened to be talking to the state adjutant general at the time, who was intrigued by the idea, and he sent his staff by, and they are doing extensive work in terms of trying to get a better way to work this issue out and get the capabilities that we have into the workforce. And I think they'll be successful also. I've also mentioned that the current commanding general, 18th Airborne Corps, happens to be a person I met when he was a major, and we've been friends ever since. And he has done the same kind of a program in Colorado when he was the commanding general out there, so he's also interested in trying to enrich all of this. All I can do is say I'll try, folks, and that sort of ends the remarks. I tried to keep them as short as I could and not ramble too much so that you could ask all the questions you want and I can duck. Yes, sir?
Arnold, Richard Biggs, the IT instructor here at the United States Air Force, retired. We spoke the other night at the fair. When a student comes to me and tells me that they've lived in their car for 2.5 months, I just go crazy. In part because there truly are resources available. Every county has different veterans organizations that are there to help people like that. So, so perhaps at the state level and certainly at the local levels, all these different agencies, the VFW, American Legion, DAV, we all go out there and we advertise to some degree, what we can do for veterans. Of course, they have to initiate it sometimes, but so I'm wondering perhaps at the state level we can do a better job of advertising with these young folks that there are people out there willing to help. I know here at our campus here we certainly extend a hand the best we can in all directions. So, so as you recognize, an umbrella organization perhaps that can let these folks know what resources are available in many different directions would be a good thing. On the other hand, for the veterans in the room, if you guys don't belong to a national organization, I encourage you to do so. You can be an at-large member of the VFW, the American Legion, DAV, because let me tell you something, without representation, you're going to lose your benefits. That's the sad fact. Fewer people in Washington have served in our country in the military, so fewer people understand the pain that a lot of people are going through today. There's some significant pain with that. So without representation, and I say this at every meeting that we have, you have to belong to something. Otherwise, you will flat lose your representation in Washington, which means your benefits will wither away. So anyway, Colonel, I appreciate you coming by and talking with us.
I'm more than happy to be here. the last part first, okay? I couldn't agree more. Okay, that we sort of we're adrift without the power we need to protect our benefits because of the disconnect in the organizations. On the first part, after our conversation, I talked to a couple people about that issue of awareness on the part of the veteran of what sorts of things are available, okay? How many of the veterans here became aware that the opportunity for more school was available either while they were still on active duty or during their exit interviews? How many? Okay. The people I talked to, that wasn't a very significant number, I admit. The people I talked to about the counseling available will tell you that I know how it was when I got separated. All I want to do is sign the papers and get out. But one of the people in the county that I've talked to, in Lee County, who works in this issue on giving the exit briefings at Bragg when people get out, will tell you in a heartbeat, the problem is most people are so interested in signing their names and getting the papers that they don't listen. It's a two-way street. Somehow along the way, personal responsibility for self has to come into it. I agree we have to be more outreach, but somehow people have to understand that they have a responsibility for themselves. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just doing that thing I get in trouble for. I'm just telling you what I think, okay? Anybody else? I can't believe I was that good on the Constitution. Yeah. Do I get?
My name's Akira. I was a jump master in the 82nd Airborne in the North Carolina National Guard. I've had, a few of my friends that got out of the military have had some issues trying to get into schools. Part of the problem is that we've been out of school for a while, and when we're applying, I guess our applications don't look as good as other people's who are just coming out of high school and stuff like that. Is there like a possibility of maybe getting like like the veterans preference that they have for government jobs, maybe to get into state schools? Because I've applied to 4 state schools in the state, and I've been denied from all of them. So it's it kind of just irks me a little bit that people coming straight out of high school and stuff can go into these state schools when I'm in North Carolina National Guard. I'm not allowed to have that benefit.
I'll find out.
I appreciate it, sir.
On the first part, I know that, I don't know this from being in the Senate, I just happen to know from applying. Almost every state and federal job that I have seen that you apply for does give preference to veterans.
I understand.
It's written in there.
I was talking
The
to
other
relations-
part, yeah, the other part I can check on,
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
okay? There's no reason why it can't be. I'll talk to my friend Senator Rabin, who's on the Education Committee, and see if we can get that done, all right? Anybody else? I'm sorry. That's the other thing I didn't tell you about myself. I can't see out of that eye. I'm not ignoring anybody over here, but if I'm looking this way, I just don't see. Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Miller, and I'm currently still active duty. I'm on terminal leave.
Uh-huh.
I was wanting to know, could you elaborate a little more on the military jobs and it carrying over to civilian and college accreditation? Because for someone like myself, I served in the military. I ran my own shop as a mechanic. But when I decided to get out of the military and I started doing the job comparison, they call me a professional mechanic. But then when I get out on the civilian side, all of the training and everything that I have, I could only be a cashier at AutoZone. And for soldiers that's not getting out, for soldiers that's getting out, and they're making the military money to go to a $7.25 or $8 an hour job because they spent their military career serving their country to get out and only be able to make $7.25, $8. how can they support their family and continue to be successful as a citizen?
Okay. When I spoke a little bit ago about my conversations with the adjutant general staff, they're working on that issue and trying to get a tighter crosswalk between your skill set, the requirements of the job, and make it a lot shorter time. The problem goes back to what I said, and I will try to fix getting everybody focused on these issues at the same time. To add to your story, one of them that I heard that I use all the time when I try to sell the idea that we're not really doing well enough with the skill sets that we bring into the workforce. In Charlotte, where they have the big regional airport, okay, they had a need for aircraft mechanics. Now, everybody knows that within the 6 bases that we have, we got beaucoup aircraft mechanics, right? They're all over the place. The trouble is, the one place that they had to go get training was a 2-year school, which means a hardship on the family because most of those people getting out do have families and do have responsibilities that make it difficult to make that kind of a choice. Well, they got into the problem and they started looking for other solutions, they being the companies that wanted to hire these people. And what happened along the way was they found some aircraft mechanics getting out. The company liked them and they liked the company and they wanted to stay. And so they found a school in Knoxville, Tennessee that they could go to for 2 weeks to get FAA certification. We've got to stop this other approach from happening. We have to get more judicious in how we scope this out. There can't be that much difference between if you could pass the FAA test after 2 weeks in one place, why would we require 2 years of schooling in our place?
I'm FAA certified. You're talking about districts, they don't talk to each other in that regard. Even individual assessment by an inspector varies from one individual to another. So when it comes to that particular field, I know what's going on there, and you have different districts with different individual requirements as well, so it's not uniform. That was a good experience there, but it doesn't carry across the FAA when it comes to the certification.
If the FAA will accept certification after 2 weeks of school in Knoxville for people with the training, there's no reason why the state of North Carolina can't do the same thing. I just can't conceive of there being rightness in that. And that's the kind of things I'm trying to work out by giving visibility to this problem. Excuse me. Anybody else? Yep.
Sir, Tim Stone. I'm retired after 20 years, split career between Marine Corps and Coast Guard. Kind of along the lines of what the gentleman over here was talking about. One thing I've noticed, because this is my 3rd community college in a 3-year time span, different programs. One of the things that kind of, with the age of technology that we're living in, why did it seem like each time I went to a different school, I had to start the entire application and documentation process over again? Is there some kind of way where they could create at least a statewide database where all I got to do is one time turn in my high school transcripts and stuff like that, and then when I transfer to another school, all I got to do is update mailing address, transcripts from the school I just left, that kind of stuff, instead of the whole process over again.
You're right. I'll find out. I do know that one of the laws that went through touched on that. I don't know if it solves it. That's why I'm not being committed. I'm being sort of squishy on it. But it did have to do with that. If you've got this many credits, then you ought to be able to transfer those over here if they're from an accredited school in the state to another accredited school in the state. And the records, I mean, with IT like it is, and the amount of information that's out there on all of us anymore and a whole bunch of different other programs, why we need to have I know that they're having trouble with a lot of the IT systems in Health and Human Services. I'm not sure about the DPI set, which is where this would fall, but I'll find out.
It's kind of similar to, I transferred from military, I transferred from one base to another, I had to reapply to be in the military again. That's the way it was feeling.
And
Hey,
I think what it is, it takes people to make things happen, and it takes people to make things not happen. And I think that, it's just, we've done it this way, and that's the way we're going to continue to do it. Until we get people with a little bit more forward thinking, then we might be stuck.
well, I think it all fits together. If we can get the organizations to work together and focus the energy, and then get some of the things started that we're talking about right now, it ain't gonna happen overnight. I will never say that. But the condition will get better, but it won't get better unless we stay focused on it. It can't be, we're excited about it today and then we're not excited about it tomorrow. I'll steal good words from almost anybody, and the good words that fit what you just said, actually, I heard one of the people from the other side of the aisle say the other day is, it's kind of like if you want to get somewhere, you got to go somewhere. Okay?
Sir,
Yeah.
my name's Natasha Patterson, a Marine Corps veteran. I currently work here at the community college with our TRIO programs, which encompasses our Veterans Upward Bound program. So there's a few things that I've heard from some veterans here. One from this gentleman who said that he had been out of school for a while. When he got out, he was trying to navigate through the school system. Same thing with you having to read, and your question about, when you come out off of terminal leave and being a mechanic and how that works. Well, Veterans Upward Bound is a federally funded program. We just got the grant here at Central Carolina Community College, and it's a college prep program. So before the veterans start to navigate that system, then you have Veterans Upward Bound that assists you with those questions that you may have. How do I do this? What kind of tests should I take? Where the schools are that are veterans friendly. That's what we do here at Central Carolina Community College. I wanted to say that because we're the only one here in the state of North Carolina. There's only 51 federally, and so that is a huge program. And so sometimes, like we all said, that the responsibility sometimes lies with the veteran too, that we have to look out and seek what those services are because they're out here. So I just wanted to say that about the Veterans Upward Bound program that's here. For any of you all that know some other veterans that are getting out that need help with navigating our system, that's what we do here before they start applying and getting discouraged and all those kinds of things.
Does Upward Bound make any presentations when people are being separated from the service?
We're trying to. If you, sir, can help us to get in that space, we would greatly appreciate it. So we're trying to get there and get out and tell them that the program is here. And it covers 5 counties here in North Carolina.
One of the people I tried to get here to help answer these questions that know more about it in detail than I do does the exit briefings and presentations at Bragg. And I already told you I know the Commanding General 18th Airborne Corps, so that might be a place we can start. I can't conceive of a separation presentation and briefing happening without local folks being there to participate in it, to say we got this, 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 and this. I mean, they have a gazillion job fairs. What the heck are they talking about? Okay? That might be the easiest task of the day. Anybody else? Yes,
Good
ma'am.
afternoon. My name's Amanda Urey. I'm one of the student ambassadors here for the college.
Uh-huh.
And my question to you is, how can you help our elderly veterans receive their benefits in a timely fashion? My father we've recently put my father in an independent living facility, and we've been waiting 6 months for his VA benefits to kick in, and they're still in the developmental phase. And to be honest with you, I've exhausted my savings account helping pay for his rent, and I'm not sure where his rent's gonna come from next month.
it's not going to help solve your problem when I tell you that the problem is the Veterans Administration is so big and so undermanned that they can't move faster. I know the person who handles a lot of that here in Lee County, John Sandrock. Have you met him?
No, sir.
And they're trying like heck, but that lag time in the VA is a federal problem that I don't see how in the world can be fixed unless they. Sometimes organizations get so big that it's time to look at how to make organizations more decentralized. The trouble with that is big organizations have a history of wanting to get bigger, not smaller. I know it's not going to make you happy to hear it, but we have problems here in North Carolina to solve. The one at the federal level is humongous. I mean, I don't know if we can ever shorten that time. I just don't know. I would seek out John Sandrock to see. I know he works here in Lee County on those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then he'll be happy to know that I sent him, and next time I see him, he'll probably want to whack me one, but that's it. It's not that nobody's trying to help.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back, I think, to what I said earlier. There are so many people trying to help, but it's a lot of energy going. If we had the focus we need, then when we spoke, our benefits, rather than getting eroded, would get increased or at least held steady. We've just got to learn to get active politically, and sitting around and knowing that the problem exists without doing something isn't going to get us going. Okay?
Thank you.
Colonel, from an educator standpoint, here at our college, and I'm sure we have similar problems all across the state at all institutions. But, you know, after all these years of war, we have a lot of students with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And they exhibit it in many ways. And some are adjusting well to lifelong Prozac, some aren't. And I'm being facetious, but that seems to be the way it is. Now, instructors such as myself and others that I interact with, and myself, and some of the other instructors that are veterans, we've been there, done there, and got the T-shirt, and we have some idea how to help the students that are in that boat. But there's a lot of instructors that haven't been there and done that, and I can't imagine they're not struggling trying to try and interface with the student in an effort to try and understand where they're coming from and help guide them, and of course, ultimately be successful within their class. So I'm wondering if at the state level, if they could provide some guidance to teachers in general from all institutions on how to deal with some of these veterans that have difficulties in class. I've even done crisis intervention, and so I know where the resources are, and all I have to do is make phone calls, but not everyone has my experience. So I'm wondering, maybe at the state level, they can publish some guidance for teachers on how to deal with our veterans that are suffering, and maybe provide suggestions for resources.
So you've been through training?
No, but I have friends in the VA, a guy, the VA guy over in Harnett County, I used to fly with him, so he's a friend of mine. And so when I have problems, I'll call him, or sometimes I'll call Tracy and say, hey, what can we do for this person? And sometimes you attempt to interface with the student, they just don't have the capacity to communicate. Typically, I can build up a rapport and talk things out and share things and make suggestions. And on occasions, there's students that just don't want to, they can't respond for whatever reason.
What would you do? What would you do? How would you solve the problem?
Well, number one, I would look for some guidance, some published, and provide some published guidance for instructors in general. Someplace they can go, a website, the state level perhaps, it says, that can help them ascertain why this, how to identify the student, number one. And number two, how to build a rapport with them if it's possible, and if not, or if they determine from their discussions that they need some help, offer suggestions of where to send them. Because sometimes the students don't realize, because they go to the VA, here's your Prozac, come back in 6 months. Well, maybe that's not accurate, you know.
I'm sure that it's not. However, you know, I'm trying to figure out where you could get the guidance you want and where to go. You say state, and that's kind of,
Well, right.
you know, is
right,
it
but-
DPI or is
well,
it the
somewhere in the
legislature or what?
In the sphere of education,
Well,
resources,
see,
not knowing the organizational structure
I'll-
out there.
I'll check on getting that done, but to me, teacher training is, I don't think, a function that, the educators in the room, do you want the state legislature involved in training teachers? Or, I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
Is what
Yeah.
I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Someplace you can click. and
All right,
go
I'm
to.
trying to figure out where it can happen, and I'm thinking right now that if it's a universal problem throughout the state, then DPI has a responsibility, and I do, to go, maybe I'll go check with DPI, that's all I can do. Because I don't think I want to be inserting myself into the teacher training and education business. I don't think states should do that.
Well, I'm thinking guidance.
Well-
And educate, and so someplace where they can go and say, all right, what do I do with this student?
Okay.
I mean, is that not big? Dr. Marchand, help me out here.
I think developing some sort of resource database that we can have access to would be something that would be good. I don't know that we would want anything dictated to us, but I think through organizations, and I go back to what the young lady here said, we have on this campus a unique opportunity through Veterans Upward Bound to access many resources that veterans at other colleges do not have. And I think we need to take advantage of that and show that it is something that can be replicated at other places once it's up and running.
Yeah. It would be a good undertaking. I just don't know how much I can help, but I'll help all I can. I can only go talk to the folks at DPI and tell them this sort of thing exists, what steps can be taken. And if it's a more universal issue, you know, I can talk to the VA is something that's not going to pay a heck of a lot of attention to a state senator, I can guarantee you that. They've got enough issues. But some of the state agencies I've been talking to could come up with something, and I'll try it.
Well, it's just, I imagine other instructors struggling, you know, trying to deal with a student, and the student's gonna get frustrated, the instructor gets frustrated, and then you have less than success for the student in the classroom. You know,
No, it's legitimate. I just have to figure out how, or what's the best path, right? And how much you want legislature really involved, as opposed to just getting someone moving that way. Yes, sir.
Not to get the weight off of your shoulders, but to carry out what you're talking about, the biggest part of that is getting that person to realize that they need help. As an NCO that just came out, we deal with those soldiers every day. But as a soldier, you build that mental toughness that you're not gonna be weak. And you're not gonna let somebody know that your weakness is, I'm suffering from PTSD. Because once you've been marked with that, then you're a loony bin or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So they don't want that stigma put on them. So the biggest part is getting that person to realize, hey buddy, you need some help, let me help you. If you can't get that person to do that, then no matter how much training you have, that person is still going to suffer from PTSD, and they're not going to get the help that they need until they're ready.
well, you're right.
Huh? Okay. I'm happy, I'll do whatever you want, you know.
Are you ending the meeting here?
I think he just gave me the hook is what he did.
I want all of you here in the room to take a moment before you leave. He's going to stay around for a little while. Hannah gave me permission to say you would stay for a few minutes. And shake his hand. It's not often that we get a state senator to come to this campus and talk to you, the veterans, and our faculty and staff about how important you are and how he is interested in what you are doing and how he is interested in helping you solve whatever problems you may have. So please, take the time to thank him, because I can tell you he covers all of Lee, all of Harnett, and most of Johnson. He has a lot of places he can be, and he's chosen to spend his afternoon with you. So let's give him a round of applause. Let's give this gentleman a round of applause. As this club continues, I'd love to see this room filled like this every time it meets, but we'll see. But congratulations on a very successful. And Senator, thank you so much for being here. We really
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
Yes,
I enjoyed it, folks. I can get kind of brusque at times, but that's because I'm one of those old guys with white hair that's been a grumpy old colonel, that's all. It just comes out once in a while.
And, sir, at this point, we as the Veterans Club, we wanted to extend our gratitude to you, sir. We actually have a presentation for you.
It's going to take us a few minutes to set this up, sir, but it's pretty fragile, so we want to wrap it up.
Is that my new motorcycle from the shop?
Unfortunately, I don't have connections down there.
Well, I'm talking to Stan about that, sir.
While you're doing that, I don't have enough for everybody, but for you, this is my challenge coin, okay? Which means the next time you see me in a bar someplace, if you don't have that, you got to buy the beer if I've got mine. And one for you.
You'll be sure I'll carry it.
Sir, this was donated. It's handmade and donated for you. It has a light that goes in it. It'll light up.
Hold it up there.
Well, I don't want it to.
He's been threatened,
my wife made this and painted it, and I've been threatened that if it didn't make it to the senator in one piece, that I wouldn't be allowed back home.
That's great. What I'm going to do with this, thank you very much, is I've got a lot of memorabilia up in the office, and I'll put it up there. And actually, I'm going to keep it at home for a while. When I'm up in Raleigh for sessions, I'll put it on display there. I appreciate it.
Point of order.
Yes.
As the Vice President of the Veterans Club, and in the spirit in which our club was formed, the brotherhood of a veteran to another, I'd like to nominate Senator Rabin as an honorary member of the CCCC Veterans Club.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Now all you have to do is let me know when the meetings are, and whenever I can, I'll come by. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll take the time to come and speak to the senator before we leave. Okay?
I'm going to take my jacket off, okay?
Absolutely.